Year 12, Lesson 6, Case Studies in Federalism. Last lesson, I delivered a lecture on federalism and the development of it, so I just want to quickly recap. Federalism is the division of power between federal government, Congress and the President, and the states. We know that the US Constitution has enumerated powers in it for Congress, for the President, and those are powers that are explicitly given. So we know, for example, that Congress can declare war, Congress can raise taxes. Anything that's not explicitly in the US Constitution is then a reserved power to the states, and we find that in Amendment 10, our reserved powers. And so although federalism isn't explicitly stated in the Constitution, it's inferred. The lecture last lesson showed you how, in the beginning, power was pretty divided. We had a layer cake federalism, so we could clearly see what federal government's job was and what the jobs of the states were. But we've seen, as the years have gone on, that we now have this sort of more marble effect where they blur, and we've seen federal government getting bigger and bigger and bigger and dictating to the states. George Bush, as a reminder, was our surprise president because as a Republican, we would expect him to want a smaller federal government, but we saw under him a massive expansion of Medicare. We saw him developing the No Child Left Behind Act, where they dictated to states what they wanted states to do, and they developed a national curriculum and a curriculum of assessments. Whereas in the past, states used to be able to create their own assessments and their own curriculums. We also saw Homeland Security completely explode. We saw him bail out Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. We saw a $700 billion bailout package. And this was all very surprising for a Republican president. And then with Obama, we saw a further expansion as well, again of Medicare and Medicaid. So we've gone on to Trump now, and we will have a look in later lessons at what he has done. But for now, we're going to go back to Obama, and we need to have some case studies for our essays because we need some examples of whether federalism is working or not. The main sort of exam questions will be, is federalism working? Or this could also fit into, perhaps, is the Constitution working? Because the Constitution is meant to tell us that there is this division between the states and federal government, but if federal government is dictating to the states all the time, then it's not working and the Constitution is not doing its job in dispersing power. So if you could go to pre-tude, you need to go to the US side, click on Constitution and Federalism, go to video 9, and then on the right hand side there are case studies. And the two that we are going to look at today are, does the state legalisation of marijuana signal a strengthening of states' rights? And the second one we're going to look at is, do stand your ground laws show the benefits or problems with federalism? I would like you in this lesson to please answer or read the article, answer the test yourself questions and the debate questions. And then at the end of the lesson, in the last 5 minutes, I will call you, or perhaps 10 minutes, call you and just see how you're getting on with those. But before I leave you, I just want to go over a few bits just before you start reading them, because sometimes it can be a bit confusing. Let's start with, does the state legalisation of marijuana signal a strengthening of states' rights? So there's been a lot of controversy about marijuana being legalised in different states. So states have chosen to legalise it, certain states, not every state in America, but certain states. But the problem is that federal government did pass an act in the 70s, the Controlled Substances Act 1970, where they said you're not allowed to grow and smoke marijuana. So when states have decided that they want to legalise marijuana, we see these two laws clashing. The problem with this is that if you get arrested, say in California where it's been legalised, if you're arrested by a federal police officer, you've broken federal law. if you're smoking marijuana. If you are arrested by a state police officer, you haven't broken any state laws. So people, what do we do? Which law do we obey? Now the thing is, at the moment, the federal police officers, they don't have the resources to deal with these sorts of things. So chances of you being stopped are pretty slim. So really, people are ignoring it anyway. But the point is that there is this conflict, and that causes problems. Now, another problem is that although states are allowed to deal with their own commerce, their own businesses within their states, once they start trading with other states in America, it becomes an issue for federal government. So let's say in California they are growing marijuana and selling it, that's fine. California can deal with that, that's within the state. But once California tries to sell to Texas or another state, that then becomes a matter for federal government, and then federal government would say, well, you can't do that because that's breaking the Controlled Substances Act 1970. So we see all these conflicts here. Now, lots and lots of states have started holding referendums with the people about whether they want to see marijuana legalised, and we have seen an increase in it, and we've seen an expansion of it. So I want you to have a look at this article, answer the test yourself questions, answer the debate questions, and then we'll talk about it. The second case study is about gun laws. So you know that the Second Amendment allows for Americans to hold guns, the right to bear arms. But again, there isn't anything else in the Constitution telling us exactly what should happen in terms of carrying these guns. What kind of guns can you have? Should they be licensed? Should they be locked up? Who can have them? What age? What checks are done on you before you buy a gun? This is down to states. It's a reserved power. Different states do it in different ways. So some states say if you're carrying a gun, you have to have it on display. So people know if you're walking around with a gun, you have a gun. Other people say, no, that's fine. You can have it concealed. No one has to know. Some states say you're not allowed to carry a gun within a certain distance of a school, for example. Some states don't state that. And for the purposes of this case study, we're going to be looking at something called the Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground. The Castle Doctrine is quite famous. We all know it, that in America, if someone comes onto your property and you feel threatened, you can shoot them. So the castle, your home is your castle. You're allowed to protect yourself. In the UK, that wouldn't happen. If someone comes in, you should retreat. Or if you use force, it should be proportional. But in America, you have the right to protect your property if you feel threatened. Now, some states have gone even further, and they are now using stand your ground doctrines. So it's not just in your house, if you feel threatened, that you can use guns. If you are out at the supermarket or in a park or just anywhere in public, you can use guns. You can stand your ground. You do not have to run away. And the reason why this is interesting for us as A-level students is because we can say to the examiner, look at the variation between the states. Federalism is really, really good for allowing different states to try different things out. So the stand your ground policy might be too strong, but at least we've tried that out in different states before, rather than federal government making every single state do it and then it be something that doesn't work. So it's a good way to try things out. Also, different states have sort of different cultural beliefs. So in some states, they really want these sorts of things. In other states, they're more liberal and they don't. So again, federalism is a good way for democracy to work well. So again, I'd like you to read this case study and answer the questions. And like I said, I'll call in at the end and then we can go through some of them. Hopefully they shouldn't be too complicated. You don't have to know the ins and outs of everything in here. It's just to have an idea about the fact that in some states they have legalised marijuana, in some states they have stand your ground policies. The stand your ground policy is actually going to be really helpful when you come on to race in America and you're probably do that towards the end of the year, because we have this case of George Zimmerman, who shot an unarmed African American man. So you'll actually be able to use that case study in both Constitution and the race topic as well. So anyway, I think that's everything. Any problems, just Skype me during the lesson or email me, and we will go through these at the end of the lesson. Good luck.